Today I want to share with you 10 life-changing tips that'll make meal prep easy. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, today I want to share with you these tips that I implement in my own kitchen that have made meal prep so much easier, and I think they will for you too. So I've got 10 tips and I've got a bonus tip at the end. Tip number 1 is to cook some type of protein at the beginning of the week. In my case, I love to cook chicken, but you can cook anything you want that fits in with what you enjoy eating and what your family or friends enjoy eating. And I have lots of videos to help you with this, and they have printable recipes. And I show you how to cook different things in the oven, on the stovetop, in the Instant Pot, in the slow cooker. So I've got you well covered. But if you do that in the beginning of the week and you cook enough, you're going to have plenty to help you with your meal prep throughout the week. Now, tip number 2, you want to make sure that you've got some bone broth on hand. Have it in your fridge or your freezer, wherever you keep it, depending on how quickly you use it up. But bone broth is really the backbone of the traditional foods kitchen. And if you've cooked some meat or you've cooked a chicken, you have bones that you can then go ahead and use with other scraps to make your bone broth. But if you've got some bone broth already made and you've got it in your fridge or you've got it in your freezer and it can be easily defrosted, that can be used as the base for a soup, of which you can add some of your cooked protein into. That can be used as a liquid in place of water in which to cook your grains so that you're infusing the grains with more nutrition. Or it can simply be served, the bone broth, as a beverage. It's delightful at breakfast in place of coffee or tea. And bone broth can even be added to smoothies. And I have a video on that, and I'll be sure to link to it either in the iCards or in the description below. If I run out of room in the iCards, you know that in the description below I'll always put all of the videos that I reference in my videos. But I'm going to tell you that bone broth is great in smoothies, and beef bone broth is great for certain smoothies. Chicken bone broth is good for other smoothies, and you can even use fish bone broth, which is very easy and very fast to make and extremely nutritious. You can even use fish bone broth in smoothies and you'll never taste it. I show you how. Tip number 3, you always want to have a homemade salad dressing, at least 1 or even 2, already made and in your refrigerator. It can be very handy when it comes to meal prep to have a simple vinaigrette already made in your refrigerator that can top salads or be used as a marinade or even a little topping on hot veggies. It's wonderful. And then also have a second salad dressing that you've already made that's like a creamy dressing. So you could have a blue cheese dressing or you could have a green goddess dressing. Wonderful. And that can be used as a sauce. Sometimes if you're making tacos and you want a little extra special sauce, you can put some of that green goddess dressing on top. It's delicious. And I have videos and printable recipes for how to make a numerous amount of homemade salad dressings. And I'll be sure to link to that below. Because when you have these salad dressings already made and in your refrigerator, they not only serve their main purpose as a salad dressing, they also serve as an all-purpose sauce. So making sure that you have 2 dressings can really help to, in essence, dress up whatever you want to serve. So if you're serving some simple green beans that you've heated up on the stove, you can put a little vinaigrette on top of them, or you can put a little bit of your creamy dressing on top of them. And now they're fancy and they're delicious, and they took no time to make. Tip number 4, you want to make sure that you have some type of homemade seasoning mix on hand and already made. Seasoning mixes are very versatile, and at the very minimum, you want to have some sort of house seasoning mix. I have a video along with printable recipes for how to make a whole host of homemade seasoning mixes, and I share with you my house seasoning mix, but I also show you how to make homemade herbs de Provence, homemade Italian seasoning mix, homemade ranch seasoning mix, homemade barbecue seasoning mix, a whole host of seasoning mixes, and you're going to find that they're so versatile. They can be used to season food that you're cooking right at that moment, or they can be thrown in with maybe some of your homemade vinaigrette and used as a marinade for marinating your chicken or your beef, whatever you're making. But you can also use them to make lovely dips. With your ranch seasoning mix, you can add that to some sour cream and mayonnaise, maybe a splash of milk or buttermilk, and you have a wonderful ranch dip. And that ranch seasoning mix also works to help you make your own homemade salad dressing, specifically homemade ranch dressing. So be sure to have those homemade seasoning mixes on hand. They're going to make meal prep easy, and they're going to make everything very tasty. Tip number 5, you always want to have cut up vegetables in your refrigerator. They can be raw, or they can be cut up vegetables that you've roasted in the oven. Cut up vegetables can be cooked quickly, and then they can be tossed with some butter or maybe some of your homemade vinaigrette, maybe a sprinkle of one of your homemade seasoning mixes, and served as an easy side dish. Cut up vegetables can even be served raw as crudités. You can take your ranch seasoning mix, make your ranch dip, and you've got a lovely little dip and crudité all ready to go. And if one of your cut up vegetables is lettuce, you can throw a salad together very quickly, especially if you already have your homemade salad dressings ready to go. And cut up vegetables, including cut up lettuce, can be thrown into soups to pull a quick vegetable soup together. But if you've got your cooked meats that you cooked earlier in the week, you can add in some of that, and you have a hearty meal. And roasted vegetables can't be beat for their flavor, and they make wonderful side dishes, especially in the winter, because you can warm them up very quickly because you've already taken all the roasting work out of the equation because you've done that earlier in the week and you've got that already in your refrigerator, and all you need to do is warm them up. And they can, as I said, make a great side dish. You can top toasted bread with them and have like a lovely bruschetta. So there are a lot of options to you when you've already got those cut vegetables in your refrigerator, whether they're raw or roasted. And speaking of keeping all of these various things in your refrigerator, just start looking for the type of containers that you would like to store in your refrigerator for these various items. They can be those plastic BPA-free sort of to-go containers. They can be glass containers. Whatever the case they are, I highly recommend picking something that you can see through so you know exactly what you've got. You've got your bone broth in one container. You've got your chopped veggies in another. Maybe your chopped lettuce in another. You've got your roasted veggies in another, and so on and so forth. You can use those cute little glass cruets that often come with the salad dressing mixes, but you don't need to buy those. But those cruets are often at the thrift stores. But you can use those nice little cruets for your homemade salad dressings, or you can also just use a jar for your homemade salad dressings. But this way you can see everything, and it's handy and easy for you to grab to throw a meal together. Tip number 6, you always want to have pre-cooked grains and beans on hand. And when it comes to grains, you can cook them in your bone broth. So you've added extra nutrition already to the grains, especially if you like to serve white rice. But having your grains and beans pre-cooked and in your fridge or in your freezer makes meal prep very easy. Number one, it's a real savings when it comes to beans, because if you buy the dry beans, soak them and cook them and put them in your freezer, that's a lot less expensive than buying beans in the can. And I have a video where I show you the right way to cook beans so that they can be prepared to be used in any recipe. And having cooked grains on hand can be such a lifesaver because rice is easy to reheat. It's wonderful for turning into fried rice, and you add a little of your protein that you cooked earlier in the week. You've got a complete meal. You can also have any other type of grain. You can cook whole einkorn, whole emmer, whole spelt. All of these grains can be cooked. You can even cook oat groats and serve them as a savory dish, and they make a wonderful side dish. And then that helps helps round out your meal. You've got some of the meat you cooked earlier in the week, you've got some of your grains that you've cooked and pulled out of your freezer and just warmed up, and then you've got some veggies, maybe some nice roasted veggies, maybe some veggies that you've quickly cooked on the stove in hot water and tossed in butter and salt. You have a lovely meal, and it took no time at all to prepare. And if you really want to keep things easy, pre-cooked rice, lentils, beans, grains, whatever you have can easily go into a soup, and that can be a complete meal served with maybe a little side salad with your homemade dressing and maybe a slice of your homemade sourdough bread, and dinner's on the table and ready, and practically in no time at all. I have recipes where I show you how to put a soup together in 10 minutes. Tip number 7, always have some type of quick pickle or ferment in your refrigerator. They're very easy to make and are wonderful accompaniments to any meal. Quick pickles and ferments are not only tasty, they aid in digestion, and especially when it comes to ferments, they're very rich in probiotics, the good bacteria that is very good for our gut. And if we keep our gut healthy, scientists tell us we keep our whole body healthy. I have many videos and printable recipes where I show you how to make all types of quick pickles as well as all types of ferments, from a giardiniera to a sauerkraut. Quick pickles and ferments make wonderful accompaniments to any meal. They don't need to be served in large amounts, and often, as I said, are simply accompaniments to aid in digestion. So if you find you ever have trouble digesting your meal, having a little quick pickle or a ferment to help you digest is really going to help, hopefully, to tamp down acid reflux or indigestion or other things like that that you might be plagued with when you eat a meal. But they're also just tasty, and they can be lovely, like if you're serving hot dogs and you want to top it with some homemade fermented sauerkraut, or you're making a sandwich and you want to put some giardiniera in it, which is a beautiful mixed vegetable ferment on top. They're tasty. They have that little bit of tang. They add that little, as they say, something something to almost any meal. So be sure to always have one or the other on hand. Quick pickles are very easy to make. And if you've never made ferments before, don't worry. As I said, I have a lot of videos. I walk you through step by step. Many of my videos are geared to the beginner. So if you're making that transition from a processed foods kitchen to a traditional foods kitchen, you'll find them very helpful. But even quick pickles, which are very easy, are a wonderful place to start, and then you can advance up to ferments. Tip number 8, let's talk about sourdough starter. Now, I know a lot of folks don't like to have a lot of sourdough starter on hand, but I'm really of another school of thought. Having sourdough starter on hand and in a good amount can really change the way you make meals. Sourdough starter, without adding any additional flour or other ingredients, can be used to make so many things all on its own. You can make pancakes, you can make waffles, you can use it as a topping on a casserole that'll give it sort of like a biscuit type topping, kind of like a tamale pie, but without the cornmeal. There are just a lot of things you can do with sourdough starter. You can make flatbread to make little pizzas. You can make crackers. Really, the list is endless. So having a lot of sourdough starter on hand is really going to streamline your meal prep. And if you're new to sourdough starter, I have a number of videos where I show you how to make sourdough starter and how to make it a lot of different ways. And I also cover all the problems you might run into making a sourdough starter and how to fix them. Plus, I have recipes for all the things I just mentioned before. How to make pancakes using it, waffles, crackers, topping for a casserole, and the flatbread. So you're going to see how easy this is to do. And when you have a nice big canister sitting on your counter of sourdough starter, you can just scoop that out and start dinner, or breakfast for that matter, and have it ready literally in minutes. Tip number 9, you always want to make your own homemade yogurt. Make it every week and have it in your refrigerator ready for meals. And you don't need any special equipment to make homemade yogurt. I have a video where I show you how to make homemade yogurt, and all you need is a bowl. Now, if you have an Instant Pot or a slow cooker or a yogurt maker, that's great. But don't worry if you don't. If you have a bowl, you can make homemade yogurt. And having that homemade yogurt on hand is going to be wonderful, because not only can you use it for breakfast, you can also use it as a marinade, you can use it as a dip, you can use it as a salad dressing, you can use it as a sauce. There's so much you can do once you have homemade yogurt in your refrigerator. Now I've got tip number 10 for you, plus a bonus tip. And tip number 10 is to learn how to make your own homemade granola. You can have a sugar-free granola, or you can have a sweetened granola. And I have a video where I show you how to make the type of granola I like, and I'll be sure to link to that in the description below. But having homemade granola on hand is wonderful, because that makes a quick and easy breakfast as well as a dessert. You can serve your homemade granola with some milk for breakfast, or you can top yogurt with it. There are a lot of different things you can do once you have some homemade granola on hand. You can mix it with some M&Ms or something like that to make a cute little trail mix for kids, and even adults too. But once you have that homemade granola in your pantry, you are all set to not only have something that's a little on the sweet side, even the unsweetened version can be on the sweet side, because if you add things like dried fruit and coconut, it gives it a little bit of a sweet taste without adding additional sugar, and I show you how to do that. But topping it on yogurt, serving it as cereal, serving it on top of homemade ice cream, there's so many different things that you can do with granola, even just snacking on it right out of the container. So having homemade granola on hand is really going to streamline your meal prep. And bonus tip, if you can, either grow your own tomatoes or see if you can buy them in bulk from the farmer's market and then home can them yourself. Tomatoes can be water bath canned. It's very easy to do, and you don't need any special equipment. And then having canned tomatoes is going to be a lifesaver when it comes to meal prep. Now, if you don't can tomatoes, don't worry. You can always buy canned tomatoes. And I highly recommend either buying the whole Italian plum or the chopped tomatoes. They can easily be turned into a tomato sauce. They can be added to soups and stews. And of course, they can always be used in the traditional way as a delicious pasta sauce. But once you have canned tomatoes in your pantry, whether home canned or store-bought, you're going to find that meal prep is going to be very easy. Now, if you'd like to learn more things about meal prep and how to prep your prepper pantry, be sure to click on this video over here, where I have a series of videos all about the pantry. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.